Upon retiring from pastoring, I wanted to dive into better understanding the ministry in a more current way. And so I started reading a lot. And I came across this book, Ministry Nuts and Bolts. I ended up meeting the author, Dr. Aubrey Malfris. He was a teacher at Dallas Seminary and spent 2 hours with him. How this book had impacted me and had a wonderful visit with him. And I read the book, and then I created these notes from the book. And I'm going to be teaching this. What I want you to know this morning, that in the local church, there are 4 components that you must master if you want to be an effective pastor or leader. There's no getting around it. I knew of the 3. I did not know the 4th one. And I'll tell you what that 4th one was. I knew about the mission of the church. I knew about the vision of the church. And I understood the strategy of the church. But of all of my ministry, nobody told me that you begin with the values that the church must go by. I never knew that. That's where you begin. And when you don't begin there, then you have many frustrations and difficulties in being a pastor. You have to understand that one thing has to be nailed down before you go anywhere, and that is, number 1, we're going to look at the values of your ministry and of your church. Now, that is an absolute essential. And that's what was missing in my ministry for over 50 years. I went to Lee University back I graduated in 67. They never told me this. I went to the seminary in Fort Worth and graduated. They never told me this. I just did not know it. I did my ministry and did not know it until I retired and read a book, The Nuts and Bolts, and found it. And that's what was missing in my understanding of the ministry. So we're first of all going to talk about the values of your life as well as the church. But in particular, I have in mind the church, though I am going to be going by the book. So let's look at them together. What core values are not? Core values are not the mission of the church. Now you have these notes there in front of you. Core values are not the vision of the church. The core values are not the strategy of the church, and core values are not the doctrinal statement of the church. Now, what Malfris is saying is, this is not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the mission. We're not talking about the vision. We're not talking about strategy, and we're not talking about doctrine. What core values are. Now, here is the revelation side. According to Aubrey Malfris, this is all found in the notes that I gave to everybody. Is certainly fine with me. You may have already done it, David. But here's number 1. Core values are constant. These are the terms that the author has used. They are constant. They do not change. They are concrete. And you have to work on them until you can say they are concrete, that they are constant. Period. That has to be understood. If they change with time, they're not a core value. If they change with circumstances and culture, they're not a core value. A core value is that which never changes. Number 2, B. Core values are passionate. They come from not only your understanding, but they have gripped your heart. You feel very deeply about them. You will not compromise. You will die before you will compromise because you believe these are absolutes. Core values are passionate, the author says. Number 3, Core values are biblical. Now that lets you know why they are constant and why you are passionate. It's based on the Bible. Core values. Now you can have other values, but we're talking about core values. They about the church, the local church. How do you do church? And then number D, core values are core belief. And what he means by that is that you believe them. They're not a passing thought. You really believe it. And that's all that means. You believe in it. And then E, core values are to drive your ministry and to drive the mission of the church. They govern, they guide your ministry. Everything you do in the church is governed by your core value. Now, this lets us know what it is, but also how important it is. Now, let's look at 6 vital ministry areas that core values has a complete impact upon. It is a determining factor. Did you get that? It's a determining factor in how you make decisions. It is brought to bear on the decisions that you make. Your core values. We'll do more with that, but anyway, just telling you, underlying it. It will determine how you solve problems in the church. What core values do you live by and do you minister by? That you will not violate, that you will not compromise. That will determine how you solve problems, because problems will be in the church forever, but you have to solve them to be effective. Number 3, the author says that core values will determine the risk that you are willing to take. The risk taking, as it's stated here. Every church has to venture out on something that is the unknown. You've never done it before. But core values will determine how you go about taking a risk for ministry and for the church. Look at number 4. Core values will have everything to do with the goals that you set. See, everything has to be compatible to your core values. It's the bedrock. It's the centerpiece. It's the cornerstone of church, your core values. So the goals that you set must be compatible to your core values. The team that you build, the personnel, the assistants, the volunteers, the lay people, everyone that makes up the ministry team will be, that selection is based upon core values. If they do not have these core values, you won't select them. If they do not have these core values, you cannot use them. Now, they can change and adopt, but you have to show them what they are. This is the bedrock of doing church, core values. And then on financial spending, see that? What are you willing to spend your finances on? Well, what's our core values? We will not violate our core values. Therefore, it has great bearing on how you decide, how you solve, how you risk, how you set goals, how you select your team, and how you spend your money. Now see how important it is? And I was never taught this. I never knew this in the way that I'm presenting it. But you must know what core values are. The kind of values. Number A is conscious. You're aware of the values, or the unconscious. You may not be aware of them. Now, this is more so for the church than it is for you personally. But it's just something that we do. We're not even conscious that it's a value. Like as an example, do you begin Sunday morning church on time? Let's say 10:30. Well, yeah, is it in print? No, we just all know to do it. That's unconscious value. But they can be either conscious or unconscious. That shared or unshared. I can have a value that you don't have. You can have a value that I don't have. Some are some shared, some unshared. C, personal versus church. How I live my life, there may be a core value that is not in the church, or the church may have a core value that is not in my life. So he is saying that there are three kinds of values: conscious versus unconscious, shared versus unshared, or personal versus church. So you got a variety. Now, let's go on. Actual versus aspirational values. Now, here's a new twist. Notice these two words. Actual, that's what you are doing, versus aspirational, that's what you wish you were doing. Now, there's a big difference there. A big difference. A lot of people have aspirations about their code of conduct, but in reality or in actuality, they don't go by it. So he says actual versus aspirational. Single versus multiple values. Let's say a single verse is the golden rule. That's my value. That's what I go by. I just live my life by the golden rule. Somebody else says, I live my life by the 10 commandments. That's 10 values. All right, F, congruent versus incongruent values. That which is in harmony with, that which is in harmony with, or that which is not in harmony with. Do you have a value that's contrary to what you say and how you live? You say, I have that. That's one of my values, but it's not congruent. It's incongruent. It's not in harmony with. And then G, good values versus bad values. Some values are good. Well, hopefully all of our core values will be good based upon the Bible. But there are people that have values that are not based upon the Bible, and they're not good values either. They're bad values. So he's giving you a contrast between, in this slide, actual versus aspirational, single versus multiple, congruent versus incongruent, and then good versus bad. And those are quite general comparisons. The conclusion, Gilbert Beers, a Christian author, says, a person of integrity, see, that could be a value right there. You see it? No, that's my value, to always be honest. A person of integrity is one who has established a system of values against which all of life is judged. Look at that. A person of integrity is one who has established a system of values against which all of life is judged. Part one, here, that's an introduction to part one, the values of your ministry. The values, chapter 2, the discovery of your values. What is your credo or your code of conduct, or your values that govern your life? Who discovers the church's value? Look at this. Again, I appreciate the brother putting this together like this so we can do it online. The ideal. So now we're saying, well, who determines the values in the church? We haven't got to them yet. We're talking about them. The idea is to have everyone who is associated with the church involved. That's ideal, but it's most of the time not practical. Since this isn't feasible, the responsibility rests with the primary leadership, which includes the pastor, staff, and the church board. Now that's the beginning place. That's just the beginning place. The pastor, the staff, and the church board. And these are general terminologies. The size of the church will dictate who is involved and to what degree they are involved. Do you see that? Obviously, that's a factor. Next, in a smaller church, more people may take active part in the process, which begins with the pastor and the board and includes lay leaders. There you go. So you see how we're taking a look at it? Most of our churches are in the smaller category, which is the pastor, the board, lay leaders. All right, let's go to the next. How do you decide or discover the church's value? That's a good question. Now, that's the question we want to really hone in on. And there can be an auditing of personal values, and I would encourage every one of you to buy this book. Here it is. You see the picture of it. This is the book. I read this was how it looked the first volume. He has a revised version. That's the old. This is the new. In that he has some what's called audits. Here's an example of one right here. You see this, and it says you can answer each question by not important to you, somewhat important to you, or most important to you. So you have 4 categories. And here's one of them: preaching and teaching scripture. And he says, is that not important to you, somewhat important to you, important to you, or most important to you? That's called an audit. And you have here 24 examples. This is an audit on a piece of paper. And you can give this piece of paper to your people, including yourself, and fill that out, and you'll find out what your values are and what your core values are. Look at the next. Review the credos or the values of several churches and looking for a common cause. See, here's an example. I'll give you an example that I have here. See, look at churches that have already done this. See this piece of paper? It says core values of Grace Bible Church, Laredo, Texas. Now, this is all in the book. This is all in the book. But there you have it. You type it off, and you can see what their core values are as a starter, and say, do we like their core values? How would we change it? Next, it says take the personal code core value audit in the appendix as well. And there's one for that. Or describe what to you an ideal church is. You could start from there. If we were an ideal church, if we were the perfect church, what would it look like? Yeah, that's a place to start. Now, auditing church values. Request that the church provide a copy of its values, if it has any. That's first there you have. Articulate a church's value based on your personal observations. Use the core values in the appendix of the book, and then gather the church team and discover common values together, comparing and interpreting the audit results. So we've done that. Now look at this. Now the individual and the church will know its core values and be able to develop a credo statement. Or once you have discovered the core values of the potential team members, then you compare them to the core values of the church to determine if a ministry match exists. Or out of the 10 core values to compare, agreement on 6 or more is necessary for a good partnership. Now that's a good point. Can you get everybody to agree on all 10? The answer, it may be no. Then what do? He says that if you can get at least 6, adopt it. Adopt the whole 10 if you can get the 6. So there's wisdom. Who to resolve value differences when we have the differences. First, bathe the entire process and all the people involved in prayer. Get them prayed. Second, study together the scriptures that speak of disagreement and conflict. So what does the Bible say about disagreement and conflict resolution? Third, be bold enough to acknowledge your differences and discuss them together. Admit it. We must take time to discuss our differences with one another and carefully listen to one another with a view toward resolution. See, with a view toward resolution, we can resolve this. We have 10. We've got everybody on board with 6. What can we do with the rest the other four. Let's see what we can do. Who to resolve value differences. Fourth, pursue consensus, not compromise. Pursue consensus. Remember, a core value is constant. It cannot be compromised. If integrity is a core value, you will tell the truth. You will not hide something in the church. Fifth, it may be wise to work with an intermediary or a consultant, an outside person, in other words, a third party, to resolve it. And sixth, whatever the situation, there's a point where leaders must lead. Okay, leaders must pursue the truth in love. This often means doing what is right and suffering the consequences. You believe in integrity in all things, and this person says, don't let them know. And you say, as a leader, we have to let them know because we believe in integrity. If the church can't live with that, then it's time for the leader to look for a new church. If the leader cannot live with that, then he or she might not be a leader. Wow, pretty tough language. But it has to be resolved because there has to be an agreement. But remember, he said 6 out of 10 you can adopt. But depending on which one it is, I might add as well. Part 1, there we go. The value of your ministry. Chapter 3, the development of your values. What to construct a credo. You ready for this? The preparation for drafting your credo, your creed, your code of conduct and practice, your value, your core values. Here we go. A, the contractor of the credo. Who's going to be that person? The contractor's building blocks. What resources are you going to use? Naturally, you're going to use the Bible. The contractor's blueprint. Now, that's what you're wanting. Find out who the contractor is, finding out the building blocks that will make up, and then the blueprint that will come from it. Here we go. The process for drafting a credo. Now, the author goes to the Lakeview Church in, I believe it is in Rowlett, Texas. Well, over there anyway, not Rowlett either. It's Rockwall. So look what they did. The name is Lakeview. See that word? L-A-K-E-V-I-E-W. That's the name of the church. Look how they came up with their creed. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 8. 8 of their values. L stands for lay ministry. That's going to be one of our values in the church. A is active prayer. That's going to be a value. K is kingdom growth. E is exposition of the scripture. V is vital community. I, innovation and creativity. E, excellence. W, worship. There you have it. That's the credo for that church. The process for drafting your credo, your creed, your values. Determining the actual values. Remember, we said there is actual and aspirational. Actual versus aspirational. They're not the same. If they're actual, they're not aspirational. If they're aspirational, they're not actual. Here's the value. The value is authentic community. The form, how will it be expressed? Small groups in the church. The value, evangelism. How will you express it? Crusades. The value is fellowship in the church. That's a value. Now this is a church value. How would you, what's the form of that value? Potluck meals, getting together for eating times. And then scripture, that's a value. Look at the form. Exposition, somebody preaching. Somebody preaching is an expression of that value. Okay. Determining the value format. let's see what it says. A value format is the form that the values, plural, take when expressed in the credo. It includes the precise words, phrases, clauses, sentence structure, and other elements that communicate the church's beliefs. Next, we value full devotion to Christ and his cause. That's a core value. There it is stated. We value, our core value, full devotion to Christ and his cause. That's a value. Now nail that down in your church before you go anywhere with these other three major components. We believe that wholehearted devotion to Jesus Christ is not only the biblical norm for the believer, but that anything less is sin in God's eyes. Wow. Full devotion should be expected of and encouraged by every believer in the community. This is taken from the Acadia Community Church as an example. Acadian Church. Now, isn't this great stuff? Boy, this is great stuff. Now let's look at the overview. Now, the first thing that we looked at was the values. These are the things that will put us together, bind us together, knit us together, and we will do church together based upon these values. There's so much more, and you'll be given the set of notes if you haven't already been, and you can buy the book from which it came from. This has to be nailed down. I'm estimating it will take a year of preaching and teaching and practicing to get this nailed down in your church. This is a year assignment. You want to have all of these meetings, the gathering of leadership, going over all of these, putting it in print. You're wanting to say, this is how we will be guided in our church work. Whenever we make a decision, we will be always true to our core values. Whenever we pursue a goal, it will always be true to our values. Why there is division in the church is because the values have not been clarified and nailed down. So one member has this value, one member has this value. How can you make a decision when you have two men with two different values? You got to nail down the value. I can't stress this enough. You got to nail it down. Everybody's got to be on board, or this is not your church. You can't be divided here. Remember, constant, no compromise. They have to be in agreement based upon the Bible. These are the values that will determine how we do church here. I can't stress it enough. If you don't nail this one down, you don't even need to deal with the other three. You're going to have problems with your church from now on. The thinking has got to be together in unison. Has got to be together. And I could give you examples, but I don't want to do that. But nonetheless, I've got to nail this one down. I've got to tell you, this is absolute. This is what was missing in my understanding. I never knew this component. I had the other three, okay, but the other three were a struggle because I didn't know this one. This has to be priority of the four. That's why it's number one. You got to know what the value. You can't just let anybody come in and join your church. They got to represent the values that you have. Otherwise, there's division, and that won't work either. Now, when you've done that, listen to me. When you've done that, now you're ready to define the mission of the church. Take you a year to get this all, the values worked out, ironed out, sorted out, nailed down, in print. Now let's talk about, now we're all thinking alike. Now let's see, what is the mission of our church? Why are we here? You ready? So here we go. What a mission is not. That's how the author begins. A mission isn't a vision or the vision of the church. They're not the same. No, 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 no. I'll just tell you right now. Mission never changes, vision does. So they're not the same. Look, what is the difference between a vision and a mission? The words aren't synonymous. They have some elements in common, but others that are different. For example, they are defined differently, applied differently, are different in length, purpose, and activity. Look at that. More we said about that in chapter 7. What a mission is not. Number 2, a mission is not the purpose or isn't a purpose for the church. That's not the mission of the church. First, the mission asks the what question. The purpose, however, asks and answers the why question. Second, the mission serves as a target at which the church takes aim. The church's purpose, however, is the church's reason for being. Third, not only does the mission come under the umbrella of the purpose of the church, but so do a number of other church concepts. So let's go. What a mission is. It is broad. It is all encompassing. That's what he means by that. It's the totality of what the church is to be doing. Did you get that? It's the totality of what the church is to be doing. That has got to be in the mission. If it's not in the mission, the church shouldn't be doing it. So you got to come up with the totality of what the church ought to be doing. Number 2, the mission is brief. You say it in a few words as possible. You wouldn't say, our mission is to go into Texas, Oklahoma, and begin to spell out all of the 50 states in America. No, you got to make it brief. Our mission is to America. Okay. C, the mission is to be biblical. Wherever you're at in this world, the mission will be always the same. Whatever the mission of the church is here, it's there. It's based upon the Bible, and the Bible speaks to everybody, every generation, and every location. The mission is a statement. You have to create a statement as to what is the mission of the church. And E, a mission is what God wants the ministry to accomplish. You see that? All right, let's go to the next. 7 diagnostic questions for establishing churches that are in decline. Now, churches that are in decline have a problem, and most of the time it has to do with values as well as the mission. Let's see what he says. The first diagnostic question is, are we pursuing and winning lost people and then helping them mature in the faith? Because that is the mission of the church. Are we doing it or not? Apparently not, because the church is in decline. Number 2, the second diagnostic question is, what are we doing? If we're not doing that, then what are, well, we're just meeting and having church and going home. 3, the third diagnostic question assumes that there is a discrepancy between question 1 and question 2. Obviously there is. It's asked, why aren't we doing what God wants us to be doing? Well, we got sidetracked when we didn't have a pastor, and so we just never changed. Look at the fourth question, forces people to look to the church's future without a biblical mission. It's asked, if we continue on the present course, where will we be 2, 5, or 10 years from now? We're trying to discern, does the church understand the mission? Now, these are 7. Let's go to number 5. The 5th question focuses on the leadership. Here we go. Leadership. It asks, do our key leaders know where the church is and where it's going? No, they don't. They don't care, apparently. The 6th question assumes that the church is merely circling the airport or a flying off course, comparing it to an airplane, trip. It asks, what will it take to change course and move in a God-ordained direction? And then the final 7th question is, are you and the leadership willing to do whatever it takes to move the church in a new direction? We're talking about the mission. Many churches are out there, but some of them, I don't know how many, are not fulfilling the mission. They're just floundering from week to week. So let's look at the kinds of mission. Your personal mission. Here are some questions whose answers will help you determine your mission in life. Now, this is personal for you and me and the church leaders of our churches. What do you want to do with your life? Well, you could say, I want to do God's will. What does God want you to do with your life? Well, he wants me to be a pastor. If God gave you one wish for your life, what would it be? To be a successful pastor. How do you want others to remember you after you're gone? That I was faithful and a good pastor. That's just making a personal observation. So that's your personal mission. Go to the next. The church mission. Now we're changing from me to church. The church mission. The church mission should be in line with your personal mission. True. It should be compatible. For example, God may have designed you to lead a church as its pastor. Therefore, you as the pastor of the church should develop its mission and implementing the Great Commission through the local church ministry. Sure. Kinds of ministry. 3, the departmental mission. Because you see, the church is a whole, but it's made up of parts. And parts we can call departments. Youth department, children's department, outreach department, worship department, on and on. First, it brings the mission concept down to the grassroots level. Second, it shows how each department contributes to the whole. The discipleship department cannot be incompatible with the mission of the church. Finally, it serves to keep each department focused not only on what the church is supposed to be doing, but also what each department is supposed to be doing. They are to be congruent. They are to be compatible. They are to be working in sync with, in tandem with. They're to be linked up together. You know that. Ask the mission question. Peter Ducker, a guru of leadership. We are mission focused, he writes. What we are trying to do, don't ever forget that first question. What are we trying to do? What are we trying to do? That's what Peter Ducker says. What are we trying to do? Piddle around or have church? The mission must come first. This is the lesson of the last 50 to 100 years. The moment we lose sight of the mission, we are gone. The values will help you to know how to go about doing it. But what do we get the church to doing? That's the mission. Part 2. The mission of your ministry. The development of a mission. How to make your mission. Okay, go on. The mission statement. So now we got to come up with a statement. Development, personnel. A mission has to do something that both the leadership and the people can share. If your people don't feel some ownership, then they aren't likely to commit to the mission. The partnership. How many people should you involve? If the church is small, it can include some of its members. Not everyone, generally speaking. Okay, Roman numeral 1, the mission statement, development, personnel. A larger church will depend on the senior pastor, the staff, the board, other key leaders, and small groups leaders who represent the various segments of the congregation. And that would include age, ethnicity, social standings, whether it be urban or rural, and so on. Whether a large or small church, it is wise to have the congregation vote on the mission statement because it affects the direction of the entire church. And that will take time. I told you the values takes about a year. This takes probably right at, this one now is never completed. I mean, making the church aware of it, because you keep it before the people all the time for the rest of humanity. This is why we are here. The mission statement development preparation. Is there a need for a church mission statement? Obviously, the answer is yes, but you got to ask the church that. And you got to convince the church that there is. Is the church ready for a mission statement? Well, you have to decide that as a leader. If it's not, you got to get them ready. How much time will it take to develop a mission statement? I'm going to say it's going to take 6 months to develop the statement. Where is the best place to develop a mission statement? In all likelihood, at the church property. How much will it cost to develop a mission statement? Not much. It will. I'll tell you what it costs. It costs time. It takes time for people to get together and carve it out. Like it takes time for a sculpture to create a masterpiece. It takes time for a church to create a masterpiece on what is the mission of our church. Now let's look at the process. The key word there is process. We went from personnel to preparation. Now we're to process. Determine what you're supposed to be doing according to the scriptures. Amen. If you can't find it in the Bible, you don't need to be doing it. If you can find it in the Bible, you ought to be doing it. The Bible is the basis of the mission of the church. Totality. Articulate your mission in a written statement. What words communicate best with your people? That's where you would discern. You have different people that's helping you to carve it out. Do your people understand what you've written once you write it? Does your mission format convey the mission statement well? Do they understand it? All of this, all to be found in just a concise statement about your mission. Okay, still on the process. C, strike a balance between breadth and clarity. You know, it's so all encompassing, but you got to make it clear. You know, I said a while ago, we could go by state, by state, by state, or we could say America. Did you know I can even make it smaller? USA. See, you work with words. Strike a balance between breadth and clarity. Is your mission statement broad enough? Is your mission statement clear and understanding? Keep it brief and simple. Don't try to impress anybody with it. Keep it brief and keep it simple. Have you committed information overload? Committed information. I'm afraid sometimes we have. We just went on and on and on till they lost interest in the mission. We said so much about it in so many different ways. Okay, the overview, that's next. Part 1, the value of ministry we looked at. Part 2 is the mission of your ministry we've looked at. Let me say this, that you begin with the core values and you nail that down. That's of the heart, it's of the soul. And then you discern and decide and what is the mission? What are we to accomplish? And that's very, now the third is values are based upon the Bible. You heard me say that. Mission is based upon the Bible. Totally, totally, totally. Both of these are based upon the Bible. Now we're going to go to vision. Vision is not based upon the Bible. Vision is circumstantial. What your vision is in one place is not the vision in another place. Because in your town, there's 25 people. In the next town, there's 30,000 people. So the visions are going to be different. In your town, they're all from the country. In the other town, they're all urban. So it's not going to be the same. So understand that. Vision is circumstantial, not values, not mission. Vision is circumstantial based upon precisely where you are at in ministry. Okay, let's go. Part 3. Here we go. The leadership study, David Goetz, Goetz. In leadership study, however, pastors indicated that conflicting visions for the church was their greatest source of tension and the top reason they were terminated or forced to resign. Look at that. Over vision, because it's circumstantial. One person says, I think we ought to focus in on the children. Another says, I think we ought to focus in on senior adults. Another said, I think we ought to do that. And now they argue because it's circumstantial. George Barna. Only 2% could articulate the vision for their church. What? That's one reason so many pastors are ineffective. They don't know where they're going. So vision has to do with where you're going. Direction has to do with direction. Focus, it has to do with, well, here it is. The definition of vision. It is clear, or it is to be clear. It is to be challenging. It is to be a picture. You see it in one shot. It's a vision of the church's future. A vision can be, you see, it's possible. And then a vision must be, it is essential that we do this. That important. Now, Ken Hemphill, he used to be the president of the seminary I went to in Fort Worth. He now is back at the seminary working. He's from South Carolina, preached in many Church of God. I talked to him on the phone. This man, Ken Hemphill, here's what he says. Vision is not what ignites growth. It's passion. Burden creates passion. Passion fuels vision. And vision is the focus of the power of passion. I've discovered in churches that leaders who are passionate about their calls create vision. Look what it begins with. Do you see what it begins with? Burden. Has God given you a burden? Oh, if I could circle it, I would circle that word with several colors. Burden. Burden. Has God put a burden on your heart? That's going to help you with your vision. Let's go to the next slide. 3 variables contribute to this passion for the vision. 1 is that God is behind it. You believe it's a God vision. 2, another is a sense that God has raised you up to lead with this dream, with this vision, with this burden. 3rd is that the culture and the church desperately needs this vision. It meets a need. It meets a need. It meets a need. Oh my. Isn't that all good? Isn't that good? All right. How can you know if your vision is a good one? Consider the vision audit below. Remember now, an audit is a questionnaire that you give answers to that reveal a truth. Is your vision clear? Do the people who are a part of your church understand the vision? Remember what George Barna said? Only 2% could articulate a vision. 2%. Shameful. Shameful. Is your vision clear? Do the people who are a part of your church understand the vision? Can they articulate it? Does it pass the people test? Does it, the smell test? The people test. Did they get it? Did they get it? Is the dream challenging? Does it excite people? Does it move people to action? We're all going to come to church and say hallelujah. That doesn't excite people most of the time. You got to be more to it, aren't you? Number 3, does the vision create a picture in people's minds? Can they see the dream? 4, is your dream, the vision, the picture, is it future oriented? Something to work for and to move into? Does it create a picture of your church future? Does it give everyone an idea of what lies ahead? Wow, I tell you, David, I'm already excited. I'll have to go back to pastoring. Do you believe that this dream can be? Given who you are and your church circumstances, is it feasible? Is it? Is it? Can it be? Well, did God give it to you? Is it a burden on your heart that won't go away? When you sleep at night and wake up in the morning, you think about it? Are you convinced that it must be? Do you feel strongly about the vision? Has it touched you emotionally? Will your ministry or your community be better for it? Yes, yes, yes. We're going to do it. God's going to help us, and God's going to get the glory. The 3 kinds of vision. Here they are: personal, church, and the church is made up of parts or departments, and that's the vision there as well. So you got 3 visions going on in the life of a church. Keep that in mind, and they should be incongruent with one another. What I personally see, what the church sees, and what these departments see, they got to be in sync, in step. Now, part 3, the vision of your ministry. The definition of vision, part 2. What is a vision? Here we go. The similarities between a mission and a vision. We're not going to do strategy today. The mission and vision are sourced in God. Okay, they're locked in. They both are of God. The mission and vision are future focused. Good. The mission and vision are direction oriented. It tells you where to go. Good. The mission and vision are function directed. It requires a function part of the church to be functional. All right. Roman numeral 1. Now, the difference between a mission and a vision. The definition, difference. Mission is a statement, vision is a snapshot. Okay. The application. Mission is to plan, vision is to communicate. The mission requires a planning, vision requires communication. C, the length difference. Mission statement is short. Remember, just a few words. The vision statement is long. The purpose of the 2. Mission is to inform. Vision is to inspire. E, the activity difference. Mission is to do. Vision is to see. The source difference. Mission, the head. It's all there. We know it's there. Vision, the heart. I see it. I feel it. FG, the order difference. Mission, it's first. Mission comes before vision. That's what this says. The coherence. Mission is common throughout the body. Vision is unique because each of us see how we can have a part to play in the whole. Mission is the whole that the whole church has to buy into. Vision is my part into the whole. I, the focus different. Mission is broad, all encompassing. Vision is narrow. This is what we are to do as a church. Effect, mission, it clarifies why we come and sacrifice. Vision, it challenges us because we're moving forward. K, the developmental difference. Mission, it's a science to be taught. Vision, it's an art to be caught. That's interesting. And then the communication difference. Mission, it's visual. Vision, it's verbal. Part 3, the vision of your ministry, the development of a vision. What to what to birth your vision. What is it that will birth your vision? The vision development personnel, the senior pastor. First, they are to continually craft, communicate, and clarify the vision for the church. The key word here is continually, in my way of thinking. You always keep it before the church. What is our vision? So we know where we're going. Second, because the vision is so vital to the church's future, the senior pastor must also be the primary vision caster. And third, the senior pastor is the vision clarifier. The vision will become clearer and more defined as problems surface and victories are won. The ups and downs, the ins and outs, and the forward and backward that we experience. Now, the ministry team, that's the senior pastor. Now let's look at the ministry team. Cooperation. They must cooperate with and follow the leadership of the senior pastor. They must avoid power plays, self-interest, and private agendas. Wow on all of those. Support. They must support the senior pastor in his efforts to develop a significant vision. If you can't support the senior pastor, then you should move to another church. And otherwise, you do harm to the church as well as to yourself. Brother, is that not the truth? Communication. While the senior pastor has the primary responsibility to articulate and cast the vision, the significant others need to be doing the same. Everybody should be talking about it. Now, expand the mission statement. The best way to develop a powerful, challenging vision is to have developed the mission statement first. We've already talked about that. Mission comes before vision. Then you should ask, what will the church look like as it accomplishes the mission in its church context and community? First, what are some of the untapped opportunities in the community that your church should address? And second, are you dissatisfied with the status quo? Two good questions. Describe what you see, the vision development process. Okay, we're at the mission. We first talked about personnel of the vision. Now we're talking about the process of the vision. Describe what you see, a vision. Pray. The first is prayer. Think big. Lean on the promises of God as you think big. Brainstorm verbally and in writing. Question in the dream as you vision takes shape in your mind or on paper. Probe it with questions and questions from different ones that's in the process, and then demonstrate patience. It takes longer to develop the vision than the mission. It takes time. But that's an interesting observation. It takes longer with the vision. Now, and that's true. That's true. Mission is based upon the Bible. Vision is based upon circumstances, your surrounding, your culture, your everything. Now the product. You had the personnel, the process, and now the product. The vision development product. The fruit of the senior pastor's labor is the vision. Studying other people's vision statements can be instructive, as well as working through the developmental process of yourself. You can learn much from seeing what others have included or excluded from their statements. And he has all of that in the back of the book. And then, however, there is the danger of adopting someone else's vision statement that doesn't fit your church, you or your church. That is why it's important for you to walk through the process first. Okay, so let's recap. We've concluded this now on the vision. Now, there's more to it. You're given a copy of all of my material, the hard copy, plus you're to buy this book. You get it on Amazon. It's dirt cheap. It's a paperback. Worth every penny. Worth every penny.